So you just harvested all your garlic. Your crop did great. You've got a ton of garlic, and now you have to figure out how to make it last all year. So today I'm going to be showing you 2/3 ways to preserve your garlic for the year. Hi, my name is Rachel and welcome back to Auxhart Gardening. So today I am showing you 2-ish ways to preserve your garlic harvest. The first way is by pickling your garlic and storing that in the fridge, and don't worry, it doesn't taste like pickles at all. It's just a good way of having preserved fresh garlic. And then way number 2 is sort of 2 ways in itself, because I'm going to be talking about making garlic powder and granular garlic, which is almost exactly the same process right up until you decide to make your garlic granules into a garlic powder, which is kind of why I'm saying it's 2 ways, but it's also really kind of 1 way. And I should point out that you can still store a lot of your garlic fresh like this after you have cured it, and that's a perfectly valid way to store your garlic if you don't have a giant harvest, or if you know that you're going to be able to go through it within the next like 4 to 6 months. Then definitely that is an option, and these extra preservation methods aren't necessary. However, I have 3 of these, and then I have this whole pile of garlic here. And so I'm taking this whole pile of garlic and preserving it today, not just because I'm only one person and there's only so fast I can eat garlic, but also because making a garlic powder, in my opinion, is a great way to go through garlic a little faster, but it's also a good way to make it easier to use garlic in cooking, because sitting there and peeling a clove every night can get kind of tedious. So also with the pickling garlic, which is going to be stored fresh in the fridge, the garlic cloves will already be peeled, and they will be super easy to just grab out and rinse off and chop up fresh without all the extra peeling. If you were to peel your garlic cloves that you have cured and harvested and then not do anything else to them, then they would definitely go bad really fast. So that's why if you want to have them pre-peeled, then you have to have an extra preservation method on top of that. So whichever preservation method you are trying to use, in both cases, the first thing you're going to want to do is peel all of your garlic. And I'm about to start doing that, but before I do, I just wanted to shout out this gorgeous cutting board that I'm using. In case any of you are wondering, my lovely father made it for me, and he has a video on his channel on how he made it. His channel is the Red Truck Woodshop, and I always have a link in the description to his channel. And you're going to have a pile of garlic shells left over. I highly encourage you to keep these. I put mine in a freezer bag with a lot of other vegetable scraps, and then I use them to make my own vegetable stock, which I have a video about if you care to learn how to do that. Hey guys, so it is much later. I got distracted by a couple of things, but I did eventually end up peeling all of my garlic, and I separated it out into these kind of really tiny cloves and the larger cloves. And so I put the larger cloves in a jar. I'm only going to be making 1 jar of my pickled / vinegar garlic cloves, and then the rest of them are going to go into garlic powder / garlic granules. So the first thing that I need to do is start chopping these up and put on a pot of vinegar to boil for the jar. So I am just using regular old white vinegar, and I'm using a kettle because I boil things in this all the time, and I think it's going to be easier to pour out of than a pot, but you can definitely use a pot if you want to. And so while that is boiling, I'm just going to go ahead and chop these. Oh, and I'm going to go set my oven to preheat. I'm going to set it to the very lowest temperature, usually called warm on most ovens. Now, if you have a dehydrator, this is the point where you would use your dehydrator instead of the oven. But because I both cannot afford a dehydrator and also don't have the space for it in the current place where I live, I just use the oven to dehydrate stuff, and it usually works out just fine. Like, I've never had any issues dehydrating anything in my oven. It just takes a while and you kind of have to watch it. And so I'm just gonna take this boiled vinegar, that's all it is, and just pour it straight in the jar with my garlic. And I'm going to go ahead and cover it with my lid and my ring. And this doesn't have to be a fresh lid, by the way. We're not canning with it. It is just simply a lid to cover it with. And I'm not going to tighten that too much. And that is going to sit on the counter until it is cool, and at which point I will put it in the fridge and it will keep for up to a year. And then once you open it, it'll like start going bad just a little faster. But you know, for like the amount of time that it'll take you to use this garlic, I think that within a few months should be a reasonable amount of time to really expect that it will be good. And now also I have seen sometimes that this turns blue, and that's okay. Sometimes it turns blue and it's still fine to eat, so don't worry about that. Okay, so I did not chop this up super finely. It's still pretty chunky, and that's fine for what we're doing. It just needs to be all like approximately the same level of chunky. You don't want to have tiny chunks and giant chunks. And of course, if you're a perfectionist like me, just don't get hung up on having them all be exactly the same. Just similarly sized is fine. You just really want them all to dry out at about the same rate. And that's the only thing that we are thinking about when we are thinking about getting them all to be about the same size. So I'm gonna go ahead and take these and put them onto my cookie sheet that I've lined with foil. Because if you don't use foil, this will stick pretty badly to your cookie sheet. All right, so this is gonna go right into the oven on warm, or whatever the lowest setting on your oven is, or in your dehydrator. And for me in the oven, it's gonna take a few hours. I'll let you know when I'm done how long it actually takes, but drying stuff like this is usually like 2 to 3 hour ordeal at least. And something I almost forgot to mention, if you are doing this in an oven, I usually like to roll up a towel and kind of stuff it in the door, just so that the water vapor that is evaporating has somewhere to escape to. Otherwise, you'll have a hard time actually getting your stuff to dry out. All right, so it is the next morning. This took about 6 hours to dry in my oven. And you want to make sure that you get it dry enough to where it is hard to the touch. You don't want it very bendy or sticky. And at this point, you can decide if you want to keep your garlic granules or if you want to pulverize them into a garlic powder. Now, with garlic powder, you have two options. You can use a spice grinder, or you could use a mortar and pestle, which I have used in the past, but this year I got a spice grinder because grinding up hot peppers into powder with a mortar and pestle is a pain, to say the least. So I'm gonna use a spice grinder and make a powder out of this. Additionally, my jar of garlic cooled off and I put it in the fridge last night, and you can see that it did kind of turn a little blue at the tips. And again, this is normal. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but it is normal if it does happen. And it's just a result of a chemical reaction going on in the garlic. And actually, I learned in some cultures, they actually purposely dye their garlic. Not dye, but like do these things to make their garlic turn blue and or green for certain festivals. So that's pretty neat, but it is completely safe to eat, even though it looks a little funky. Alrighty, and here is my finished garlic powder. This is all of it. So the amount of garlic you saw makes about this much powder. If you want to go ahead and make garlic salt, the ratio is usually 3 parts salt to 1 part of your garlic powder. And in terms of using your preserved garlic, just rinse it and then use it like you just peeled a fresh clove of garlic. And that is all there is to it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you learned something. And if you want to, you can follow me on Instagram. I am at Auxhart Gardening, and there you can see more updates on the garden a little more frequently than I update this channel. Again, thank you guys for watching, and until next time, I wish you all happy gardening. Pickled. Oh! Get down.